friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be using the Lawn Fawn set Meow You Doing, and I'll also be using the Echo Park Party Time 6x6 pattern paper pad, and I'm going to be making 4 cards today. I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers, so I've stamped my images with Memento Tuxedo Black ink on some Copic friendly cardstock. And for the first little kitty, I'm using W00, W1, W3, W5, and W7. I'm beginning with the W3, which is the darkest of my lightest 3 shades, and I'm going to add my shadows on my cat. I'm not quite sure where I want to put his darker patches yet, so I'm just going to do some overall shading as if the whole cat were white. So then I'm blending out with the W1 and finishing with the W00 as my lightest shade. I'm not covering the whole cat, I'm going to leave some parts white. And then I'm going to come in with that W7 and begin to block in some different shapes on his fur. So a while back I started a series here on this YouTube channel called One Set 4 Ways, where I take one stamp set and make 4 different cards. And I've been wanting to resurrect it. It's just a lot of work to do these kinds of videos, and I know that they are a little bit of a longer video, and I'm not sure if you guys are really into that, but I thought today was the perfect opportunity to resurrect it since it ties in with our current Lawn Fanatics challenge, which is card sets. So my idea behind the series was just to give you guys a little more inspiration to really fully use a set so that you have more card ideas and aren't just, maybe getting a set that you only use once or twice. So let me know if that appeals to you, but getting back to our coloring, I just blended out the W7 with the W5 and then finished with the W3, which is the color we started with, so it's going to blend together nicely. My second cat is going to be an all-white cat, so I'm starting the same way I did on the first one, but I'll just be using those 3 lighter shades. So I started with the W3, just laid in a few shadows, and then I'm going to blend out with the W1, and then I'll finish with the W00, but I'm just sticking really close to the outside edge. I don't want him to get too gray. I want him to look like a nice bright white cat, but I do want him to have a little bit of dimension to him. For my third cat, I wanted him to be an orange and white striped tabby, so I'm starting with the E000 and the E00, and I'm going to do my shading with those 2 colors. It's kind of a peachy tone. It's a great skin tone, but it also works great for kind of a lighter orange or peach color. So I'm going to do all my shadows with that, give him a little triangle on his head, and then a little shading on the outer edges of his body. And then I'm going to bring in the YR01 and just draw some tiny little triangles. I'll bring some coming down from his top of his head, and I'll do some on the sides of his face, and then I'll bring it down to the sides of the rest of his body as well. And I'm just using the very tip of my marker with a really light hand so that that nib is just barely touching the paper, and that's how I'm going to get these nice thin stripes. And I'll finish him up with a few stripes on his tail, just coming in from either side and bringing those towards the center. For my fourth cat, I wanted her to be solid gray, and for her I took inspiration from my friend Carrie Webster's cat. That's KW Card Design here on YouTube. She has 2 kitties named Daisy and Katie, and this one is like Katie. She's a Russian blue, and I just think she's so pretty, so I wanted to color this one to look like Katie. So I'm using the C1, C3, and C5 for her. I started with the C5 for my shadows, and then I'm going to blend out with the C3, just bringing that color in from the edges towards the center. And then I will finish her up with the C1 as my lightest. By the way, Carrie is having a Lawn Fawn week over on her channel, so all week long she's going to be posting a video a day using Lawn Fawn products, and it's going to be super fun. So if you guys would like to check that out, I'll have a link to her channel in the description bar below the video. These colors weren't blending quite as much as I would have liked. I think maybe they're a little bit dry and need refilling, but I just went back in with the C3 and flicked a little bit more of that color in to help blend in that transition from the C5, and then I went over all of that once again with the C1 just to smooth everything out. While I have those markers out, I'm also going to color in the little can of food over here and one of the toy mice. The other can and the other toy mouse I'm going to color in with some warm grays, the same 3 warm grays that I used on the white cat. I'm not going to show the second set in the video just because it's the same exact image colored in the same exact way. But on the can, I'm shading from the outside edges towards the center since it is a circular object. And then on the mouse, I'm shading from the left to the right since that's the direction that he's facing. When the images are going to be indoors rather than outdoors and they don't have the sun as their light source necessarily, it's just more of a lit room, I usually just shade in the direction that they're facing. So the lightest area would be on their face and the darkest shadows would be towards the back of their bodies. I'm using the R20 to color in all of my kitties' noses. I'm also doing the insides of their ears. And I decided to give them all some rosy cheeks as well. I just think it adds to the cuteness factor and just gives them a little bit more personality and pizzazz. And I am going to come back in and color the ears of my mouse toy as well. For the rest of the images, I'll be bringing in colors to match my pattern papers. So the first combination is GO2, GO3, and GO5. And I'm going to color the label of one of the cans of food, a ball of yarn, and one of the stripes on the party hat. I am going to realize that I forgot to stamp a second party hat, so I will stamp that off camera in a second here and just color that one off camera as well. I'm just alternating the stripes on that in reverse of the one that's at the top. So the second color combination I'm using is Y13, Y15, and Y17. I'm going to use that for the little goldfish on the front of the can, or maybe it's not a goldfish, but I'm making it gold colored. I'm also going to do the flames on my candles and another ball of yarn and one of the stripes on the party hat. The next color combination I'm using is R22, R24, and R29. This is kind of a salmon red. It has a little bit more of a pinky undertone, so I thought it would match really well with the papers that I'm using today. So I'm going to color in the cat bed and one of the candles, a ball of yarn, and another stripe on that party hat. I used the R29 for all of those items, and then I'm blending that out with the R24. I'm bringing the color in on the bed from the outside edge, just like with the can, because it is a circular object. And then just blending up on the yarn ball, because even though that is round, you're not seeing the back side of it. And it's also not a shiny object. So I'm just shading the yarn balls from the bottom right corner towards the top left. And that's just because of where I'll be placing them on the card. I figured most of them will be to the right of the cats. The next color combination I'm using is BG10, BG11, and BG13. There is quite a bit of difference between the BG11 and the BG13, whereas the BG10 and the BG11 are pretty similar. So I do have to do a little bit of extra work blending in the BG13 and the BG11, but it does look nice in the end. I just go over it usually with a second coat. I'm also coloring in the cushion on the cat bed, so I'm just putting the darkest shadow around the outside edges and alongside the back. Even though you won't really see it, that is where it would be more shadowed because it's kind of tucked in back there. So that kind of gives that, idea of there being a little bit of depth. And then having the highlight in the center is going to make it look like that's the most raised part. The last color combination I'm using is R20, R22, and R24. So the R22 and the R24 we already used with the R29 in the previous combo, but I just wanted a lighter shade of pink for that, so I went with that for the last ball of yarn. And I'll color in the food with the E13. I've die cut a white circle and then a blue half circle to be my focal panels. I'm going to put that circle inside my Misty and stamp my sentiment. I'm going to do a different sentiment on 3 of the 4 panels. I will use the Happy Birthday sentiment twice just because I use birthday cards the most. While I have my Misty out, I'm also going to stamp all the insides of my cards using Lawn Fawn's Merman ink. I'm stamping a different cat on each card with an accessory, but I'm using the same inside sentiment for all 4 cards. It's the one that reads, "Wishing you a possum day," and I thought it went with all 4 of the outside sentiments. So I'll assemble one of the focal panels on camera. I'm going to do all 4 of them just the same, but I'm just trying to save a little bit of time here so you're not watching me do the same thing over and over. But I'll first add the blue half circle to the bottom of the focal panel because that's going to be my carpet. Then I'll add one of the cats and then 2 to 3 accessories for each card. So for this one I'm going to have him playing with a ball of yarn. So I'll give it the little string that's coming out as well since it's kind of unraveling just a little bit. So I'll just tuck that in behind, kind of accenting the sentiment, but being careful not to cover any of it up. And then the other 2 yarn balls I'm just going to add over on the right hand side. And then I'll bring in all the other focal panels so you can see how all 4 of them are put together. Like I said, I have 2 of them that are birthday themed, and then one that's thank you, and one that's just an everyday card. So I did do all the die cutting ahead of time to save time in the video. It did take me about an hour to do all of the prep work, so I like to clean up as I go. So I don't have the actual dies out anymore to show you, but I will have them all listed and linked below the video so you can check them out there if you're interested. But for card number 1, I started with my base print, which was the most colorful and had the brightest patterns, and I layered that to cover the entire card. Then I added the square pink star on top of that to kind of break up the color palette, and then layered the scalloped stripe over top and just cut that so it has a flag end. And then I'll pop my focal panel up in the center. For card number 2, I'm going to use that scallop stripe as my base pattern, so I'll cover the entire card with that. And then I've got a stripe using the same base pattern, so this is kind of in the reverse of the previous card. Same patterns, just different order and different sizes. So I've got the pink star cut down a little bit shorter, and then I'll layer my focal panel right over top in the center once again. For card number 3, I cut down 1 piece of pattern paper to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 wide, so it covers the entire card front, and then I gave it that rounded die cut in the center, and I flipped 1/2 over, so it is the same exact piece of pattern paper, but because it's double-sided, I'm going to get 2 prints out of it, so they're going to coordinate perfectly. So I'll add this more colorful print down at the bottom, just fitting that in like a puzzle piece. And then I can grab my focal panel, peel off the backer sheets, and pop that right over top. And notice that I am using certain elements to tie all the cards together, so they really could be a set or stand alone. So I use the same stamp set, the same pattern paper pad, and even though the layout of each card is different, they all have the same color palette, they all have a circular focal panel, and they all have the same inside sentiment. So you certainly don't have to do all of these elements the same when you're making card sets, but having a couple things that tie together across the board is really going to make them look like one cohesive unit. So for card number 4, I have this colorful polka dot as my base layer. Then I layered over top of that the cupcake print, and I just shifted that over to the left for something a little bit more different and whimsical. I've got a little pink strip of confetti across the bottom, and then I tucked in a flag banner underneath that. That is the reverse side of the cupcake print, so it's going to coordinate very well. And just pop my focal panel right over top of that. To finish off the cards, I'm going to add a sprinkle of Pretty Pink Posh Sparkling Clear Sequins. This is from the mix, and it has 4, 6, and 8 millimeter sizes inside. And I'm just picking randomly. I've got all 3 sizes laid out there, and I'll just set those down into my liquid glue. I'm using Ranger's Multimedia Matte, which I find is a really great adhesive for sequins. I've tried sending them through the mail, and this seems to hold up the best of all the glues that I've tried. And that is going to complete our cards for today. I'm going to go through each one again with you guys and just show you both the outside up close and then the inside. I hope you guys found it helpful and that it gave you some ideas of how you may be able to use an entire stamp set. The only image that I did not color was the fishbone, but I did end up stamping it on the inside of 2 of the cards. So I ended up using every single image and most of the sentiments in these 4 cards. And I know the pattern paper section of the video was super quick today just because I wanted to, not make the video too long for you to watch, but hopefully you picked up some tips on how to layer different patterns and do different layouts of cards with your pattern paper as well. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. I would love to have you. Here's 2 extra videos you may also enjoy. These are both from the previous One Set 4 Ways series, so let me know if you guys enjoyed that as well, if you'd like me to continue that. Have an amazing day, everybody. Bye-bye.